Hi guys, welcome to all my new subscribers. So today you guys voted for a reading talking about different types of soul connections. Be sure to look at my community tab because you can vote in polls for the readings I'm going to do. I will be doing one long reading every weekend, uploaded either on a Saturday or a Sunday. And this week you guys voted for soul connection discussion basically. So rather than doing it in my reading room, we're in my studio. I have my canary Rubicon in the corner. He's just finishing his molt, so you won't hear him singing. But those of you who've been with me since the beginning will probably remember him singing when he was in my reading room before I got my cat, Solstice, my other familiar. I've also got my tarot deck I'm working on at the moment in the background. I've got, well, let me show you as well. I've got my porcelain, one of my porcelain bats. This is a sleeping bat. It will be black porcelain once it's fired. It looks darker once it gets fired. Let's put him over there. Put him to sleep gently in the corner there. Just wanted to show you guys what I'm working on. Also, I've got my new tarot deck that I'm working on. I'm gonna have a solo kind of presentation of that in 2023, something I manifested. And I'll be selling editions and everything. None of these are the finished ones. These are all, I'm going to redraw all of them. But I'm pretty happy with the King and Queen of Pentacles. These are my latest. I don't know if you can see them. There. There. These are so good. I love these too. These were inspired by a ritual I did, a group ritual with some friends of mine who are very spiritual. We found a tree that had been electrocuted. Well, yeah, lightning struck it. And we then researched afterwards and it was a beach, and prayers said under a beach go straight to heaven. And the whole electrocution or the lightning strike, people use struck wood by lightning in a lot of spell work. So everything we were trying to do was like, it was the perfect place. Anyway, it inspired the King and Queen of Pentacles, who are obviously all about grounding. So yeah, this is my studio. As we're talking about stuff rather than doing a reading, I thought I'd do it in here, show you guys what I do when I'm not doing my readings. Talking of rituals, I'm gonna upload this tonight on Saturday the 8th rather than the 9th, because on the 9th there's a powerful full moon, Aries full moon. And I will be doing some group spell work in my garden. If you look on the community tab, you can see photos of the last one I did where I did a group burning ritual. I'll be doing that tomorrow. So if you guys want to purchase a candle burning from my Etsy store, which is very affordable, it's only £7, or actual spell work, custom spell work, where you get the instructions to recast and it's a video of me doing it. If you book either of those things before 5 p.m. UK time on the 9th, which is tomorrow, I'll make sure they're cast that day within that 24 hours, which is the most powerful time. But I'll also do free extra spell work when I do my group ritual, releasing something that you want to release. But release work can be like releasing blocks to do with what you're trying to manifest, releasing fear. It doesn't have to be like releasing a person or a situation, but it can be very good if you want to cut cords, stuff like that. So I just thought I'd mention that. I'll be doing that tomorrow. So yeah, let's talk about spiritual connections. There's a lot of information you can find about spiritual connections, so I thought it would be good if I kind of give my personal experience with some of them, because I can only give you what like my experience is and the research I've done and stuff like that. I do want to kind of premise everything I'm saying with whatever you believe in your reality is what will be true in your reality. So some people do not believe in twin flames or soulmates, and in their reality, they probably don't exist. They will just have people that they get on with really well. Do you know what I mean? So that's something to be aware of. So just because I believe in this and this is true for me, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily true for you unless you're resonating with it. Because it's like a multiverse that we're living in. So in some realities, some things exist. In some realities, other things don't exist. Obviously, if you're kind of subscribed to me, we're probably on a similar vibrational level. We probably look at things in a similar way. You're maybe more spiritual. So it's likely that some of the things I believe will be true in your reality because we would have attracted each other vibrationally. That's probably a different video. But anyway, so this is why it's important. No one should push their kind of spiritual beliefs on anyone else, because we are basically the operant power in our reality. This is how manifestation works. I've been reading a lot of Neville Goddard and also the Kabbalion and alchemy and things like that. And basically the universe is mental and everything is created by thought, whether that's thought in terms of visualization, affirmation, scripting, whatever it is. You could say that we are like the author who writes the story, and we write stories of characters, and those characters are real, but they're also us. And also, maybe all of us are the characters of someone else. Call it God, call it the I am, call it the universe, call it whatever you want to call it, which is clearly a sentient being which has thought all of this up. Strange pattern of light here. Okay, so that's my kind of belief system. And in that way, we are all connected. So we have spiritual connections to everyone. So that's why it's important not to put any type of connection above another type of connection in terms of its importance to you. We basically are all connected anyway. That's how, for example, I can do readings for clients and they just tell me their first name and their star sign if they want to. Sometimes I don't even need that. If a client hasn't given me that, I'll just do it. And usually they'll have like a name on their thing and I'll just assume that's them. And that's actually got me in trouble before because I've done it for the person who's named, but they bought a reading for their sister, and I ended up doing a super accurate reading for the person that was named, not the person who wanted the reading. But basically the way you can do it is, the way I can connect into any of you, or how you can connect into anyone else, is because we are all connected via the unconscious, via the collective unconscious, via the universe, via God, whatever you want to call it. We are all basically one. We're a bit like leaves on a tree that have come to experience life individually, but then we kind of mulch down and rot and become part of the tree again in terms of like reincarnation. So we're all here having our little experiences, but they're to teach us as a whole something more. That's my belief, okay? Within this, reincarnation I totally believe in, and in fact I'm reading a very interesting Diane Fortune book at the moment where she is talking about, if you don't know who Diane Fortune is, she's amazing. I recommend reading her. But anyway, she was talking about how in religion and Christianity they don't actually say that reincarnation isn't part of it, and all of these things come from the Kabbalah originally, where it's very much part of it. But anyway, that's a kind of other topic as well. But we are all, I think we all reincarnate, maybe not all of us. Some people are here to just experience things and that's it. Some people want to come back. Some of us, when we come back, we make contracts with other souls in order to get things done in the next lifetime, or hey, you could help me out doing this thing, let's arrange to meet. And sometimes that kind of let's arrange to meet could be something that feels very difficult to you in 3D reality of your current lifetime, but that person is actually probably one of your best friends in the 5D. So that's why that may be a connection called like a karmic connection, but we have karma with anyone that we have a connection with, and we have karma with anyone that comes into our life usually. Because anyone that you're meeting, it's kind of for a reason, whether it's to enrich your life, to make it like happy and comfortable, or to help you do something, or so that they're a catalyst for you to change in a way that is tricky and problematic. I'm going to talk, there are so many different types of soul connections, but I'm going to talk about the ones that we mainly hear about and what I believe about them, because I think there's a lot of information that is not very helpful and it's not accurate to what I've experienced. Okay, so there's soulmates. Now, soulmates can be either platonic, so they could be friendships, they could be, your daughter could be your soulmate, your mother could be your soulmate, your pet could be your soulmate. And some of them can be also romantic, where it's like your life partner. Now, this type of connection is, generally speaking, in fact, almost all of the time harmonious. That's not to say there aren't maybe some lessons you go through in terms of like with your relationship or with your friendship, but generally speaking, it's a connection that's there to help you, and it may last for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. I'll give some examples of soulmates that I believe I've met. So one soulmate I met when I was about 18. At the time I was reading tarot at a nightclub wearing a leopard print leotard, which now, I mean, maybe I would wear it now. I looked fabulous. Anyway, I was like 18. He was older. I gave him a tarot reading and I instantly felt a sense of connection. And then we found out that his mother was the counselor at the school I was at, but she didn't work there anymore. So there was a strange kind of link already, a feeling of familiarity. Now we had a romantic thing for a while, learned a lot of lessons, some of them a little bit tricky, but I always got the feeling that we would know each other forever. And he set me on a really good path because when I first met him, I was doing fashion, which is not really that suited to me at all because it's very, I mean, this is a generalization, but it's pretty commercial and kind of cutthroat. And you have to turn around stuff very quickly. It's not very like, you don't invest a lot of emotion in the same way that you would if you were creating an artwork, in my opinion, because it's about selling, you know, things seasonally. But maybe that's different now. Anyway, I was doing fashion at the time. He encouraged me to do art instead, which is something I'd wanted to do. He was also really into reading. I wasn't really that into reading because I've always been dyslexic. I mean, I overcame my dyslexia and got all A stars and stuff, but now I'm like really into reading and writing, and he kind of inspired me. He watched a lot of cool movies. He was studying film. He kind of set me on a path of certain things. And years later, we collaborated on a film together as an artwork of mine, and we are still friends, and there's no romantic overtone to things anymore. It went from being kind of like quite intense and difficult to being just like really solid friends, someone that whenever I see them reminds me of my old self, someone I'm sure I will know forever. So that's an example of a soul connection, soulmate, where it went from romantic to platonic, but it wasn't at all a twin flame thing or a karmic thing. It was a soulmate thing. It was something that, and this is someone I think I'll know forever. And there was a feeling of familiarity when I met them, and a feeling of comfort. Another soul connection I had, which was just for a season, although I'm sure I'll know them in some aspect for a long time, was another guy. I met him after I had already met my twin flame, and I was quite heartbroken about the whole twin flame thing. And this guy that I met was also an artist. I'm an artist. Was also an artist, and whenever I went into a room with him, I would want to gravitate towards him. He made me feel extremely comfortable. It was like brother and sister. He felt the same thing. We would go on these drives and expeditions together, and it would be like a lot of fun and a lot of laughing. And at the time, he was going through something very tragic. I was going through something very difficult, and we just were there to kind of bring each other up. And it was a very beautiful thing, apart from he felt this feeling of connection, but wanted to push for it to be romantic. And I knew it shouldn't be. And we dated for a while, and obviously it fell apart when my twin flame came back. And I told him it would, but we're still friends. But I feel like we were really meant to know each other at that specific time. He also helped me a lot with my art and stuff. A lot of these connections with people I've met have really helped me in terms of my creativity or my readings, my life purpose. So your soulmates will get you back on track with your life purpose. At that time, I was feeling very depressed about what was going on with like my life, and he really redirected me to put it into my art. So that was very helpful. So there'll be people that are synced up to come in if you're getting off track and remind you of yourself, which is why with the first soulmate I talked about, whenever I see him, I remember my old self. I remember my core self. They're there to remind you of that. Then there can be soul connections that are purely platonic. For example, I have a group of friends and we knew one of each other, so for example, I knew one person who knew another person, but we didn't know each other, or we'd all met each other at different points of time, but then we all ended up knowing people that, like, we became a group of connected people, although we had all met at different points in time, but we all happened to know each other. So it felt very much like soul family, basically. And we have a lot of fun together, and we also do some rituals together. And, you know, one of these people said to me, I wonder if, like, or we definitely knew each other in a past life, something like that. And there are those connections where it's almost like your soul tribe. Now, I also have soulmate connections in terms of soul tribe with other readers that I've never met in real life. There's a girl who reads on Etsy as well, who's one of the only ones I would recommend on Etsy, because I tried everyone for a project I did. I've spoken about this before. There are a lot of not great readers out there, so use your discernment, but you'll come across them if you need to learn lessons about trusting your own intuition anyway. Any reading you get from anyone is to teach you something, even if the reading is really bad or inaccurate. It's to teach you to trust your own intuition. That's also another video. I could talk about this stuff endlessly. Anyway, so there are certain readers, like there's this one girl, she's in a twin flame connection. She came to me to get a reading, scrying, didn't tell me anything. I knew she was in a twin flame thing. And then I got a reading from her, very accurate. We swap readings now. Whenever I read for her, her twin flame comes back into her life, but she's the runner. She's not interested in being with him, but they have this connection. She's with a soulmate now, romantically. But we have a soul connection, and it like whenever I need a reading, she'll also need one, and we can just give each other a lot of guidance. And I feel like that person was put there as part of my soul family, and they feel it as well. What else? So those are kind of soulmate connections. I also think that, like, my pets, well, they're kind of familiars, especially Rubicon, my canary. When I was going through a very emotional time where someone was sending me bad energy, he got super sick. The vets wanted to put him down 2 years ago, but he's fine now. But I have to give him like pain relief medication. But he is my familiar, which means that you don't really want to make a pet a familiar unless they already are, because they will take a hit for you if anyone sends you bad energy. But since I put a meteorite near him in this room, he's been fine. Anyway, so pets can also be soulmates. My cat Solstice is maybe more than a soulmate. She might be an animal familiar / animal guide. I don't know exactly, but we have a very intense and very amazing relationship, and I manifested her. You can watch a video on how I manifested her. It was very magical. It was set up by the universe. Anyway, so that's kind of soulmate connections. You can have, your parent could be a soulmate too, and some people do have romantic relationships with a soulmate, but it doesn't mean that all soulmates are meant to be romantic. That would be more like a life partner, which is someone where you're just meant to kind of enjoy life together, and it's characterized by a feeling of home. But I'd say twin flame is more a feeling of home. Soulmate is more a feeling of comfort. For example, the soulmate that wanted to kind of marry me, that I was talking about, the second one, I never wanted to like be intimate with him sexually. I mean, I did, and it was fine, but I felt more like he was a brother. Whereas he didn't have that. Well, he experienced it differently because he has a different take on all of these things, and he just felt like we were very familiar, and that must mean we should be together romantically. But it wasn't really like that. It's a feeling of comfort, like you can just totally be yourself, and it's easy. It's easy, and it's almost like a refuge place if other things are difficult. So if you had a twin flame dynamic, you would find that your soulmate is like the opposite of that. Like, they're so easy and comfortable. So most people probably would ideally, if they don't have a twin flame, because not everyone does, or they haven't met them, they ideally would probably want to be in a romantic connection with a soulmate. You would want your friends to be your soulmates, definitely. You definitely wouldn't want karmic friends. And yeah, that's soulmate. Karmic relationships, as I said, all relationships are karmic with anyone where it's significant, because we have past life karma with pretty much everyone we encounter, probably, unless it's people who are just here to guide us, which I'll talk about as well. But karmic, when it's used in terms of readings and stuff, is usually meaning a relationship where there's some level of toxicity, where you were probably meant to learn some kind of lesson towards your soul growth. Earth is a school where we come to learn. It's not meant to be easy. And some of the most challenging things that happen, we've agreed to before we came here. I know that's a hard one to accept, but it's quite liberating once you can kind of get to that point. We can't change certain karmic lessons we decided to learn or learning experiences, but we can ask for them to come in a gentler, easier way, which is what I do with my Akashic Reset. If you haven't had it, maybe get it. It's really good. Listen to it regularly. So you can ask for these lessons to come smoother, softer, gentler. And you can also ask that if you've been through a learning experience, but you're stuck in the karmic cycle, so you're going through the same thing with the same person, or you're having the same relationship but with different people, but it's exactly the same dynamic, it's likely that you were meant to learn a lesson such as self-love or self-worth or whatever, but you didn't learn it from that experience, so you're repeating the karmic cycle again and again and again. So that's where Akashic Reset can be really good to get rid of that. But these types of karmic things are just lessons. So some of them can be actually good. And sometimes the people that you've had the most difficult time with in this reality, in the 5D, in the kind of spirit realm, you're the best of friends and you agreed to do all of this. Example of a karmic relationship I had. Often people confuse karmic relationships with twin flame. And also twin flame connections can become very karmic even if they are twin flame, if one of you or both of you are trapped in cycles. So there's an overlap. But I'll give an example of a karmic. So often as well, you might get a false twin flame coming just before your true twin flame if you are destined and have agreed to meet your twin flame in this reality. Oh, I should say everyone has a twin flame. Sorry, let me go back. Everyone has a twin flame, but not everyone will meet them in this lifetime. It's incredibly rare that you would. Basically, you're the same soul, but you could be the same soul with a group of your soul tribe as well, in terms of there can be soul fragments within your soul tribe that you all share. As we all come from one anyway, we are all one. But there are certain sets that we reincarnate with. So our soul energy can be in other groups or it can be really evenly split within another person, one other person. This comes down from some ancient principle where there was a certain set amount of people. I think Plato talks about this in I don't know how you say it, where the original humans had 4 arms and legs and they were more powerful than the gods, or the gods were worried that they would be too powerful, so they split them in half, and then they were always searching for their other half. But there's another theory where there's a certain amount of people that were in the world and they're the original ones, and all of us are descended from them, but we split into different bits soul-wise. But let's not get into all of that. You can research this, guys. Anyway, I'm not a total expert either on all of the kind of history of this, so do your own research. This is just to start you thinking, okay? But I can definitely give you some distinctions of what these connections feel like in terms of, so you can identify which one you're in. Not that it really matters, because I wouldn't put a label on them anyway. They're all karmic. The only reason it's useful to put a label on it is if it's helpful to you. If it causes more anxiety and causes you to become obsessional, I would not care about the label at all. Okay, so karmic ones. I'll give an example of a karmic one. So often before you meet your true twin flame, you might meet your false twin flame if you're destined to meet your twin flame in this lifetime. Not everyone is at all. It's quite rare, okay? You might get a false twin flame first in order to prepare you for the intensity of it. This will be a deeply karmic relationship. And I mean karmic in a way that is very tricky. So I met, just before my true twin flame, I met a very karmic, I didn't know any of these terms when I met this person. When I met them, I felt kind of like drawn to them, but also the first night we spent together, I was like trying to get an Uber home, and they kind of manipulated me into seeing them more. So my gut instinct was not like, oh, this person feels like home at all. My gut instinct was like, no. But gradually I became very enmeshed with the person, and it was a very challenging relationship. But I did have some telepathy with the person. I did start opening up more to my spirituality. I think I had started saying then that I was very psychic, and he convinced me I was insane instead about stuff that I was right about, and I found out afterwards I was right. But he tried to convince me I was crazy, like a lot of gaslighting. But I was starting to open up to my spirituality, and I did get some clairvoyant things of like knowing where he would be, and then he was there. So this is why it could be very easy to confuse the karmic false twin flame with a real twin flame, because you do have some of the same things, but once you meet the true one, you'll realize how different it is. And it's not it was positive for my work again, but in general, if I could get rid of that relationship, I would get rid of it. Whereas I wouldn't get rid of any of my relationships with soulmates, even if they were tricky at the time. I have revised this relationship to get rid of it anyway. Like, as I said, you can't karmically get rid of things, but once you've learned the lesson, you can release it. So doing Akashic reset was very good for this, and doing revision where I wrote out the history of what happened in a way that I preferred was very helpful to me. I wrote it out that as soon as my intuition told me he was bad news, I left. Because he was basically pretty much like emotionally and sometimes physically abusive. And a real twin flame will never be abusive emotionally, physically, mentally, or any other way. They just won't. So if there anything like that is going on, it's not. And please stop spiritually bypassing and justifying that connection through spirituality, because you've heard that twin flame connections are difficult and stuff. It's not the same thing. Then twin flame. So yeah, karmic relationships will be very turbulent, very tricky. They'll teach you a lot, but they'll be hard. But they will teach you a lot, and maybe that person you agreed to do it all with, even though it was that tricky. But you can still outstay. Like, I had learned the lesson from that pretty immediately, which was to listen to my intuition, not what he was telling me. So that connection really taught me to trust my intuition, because I didn't. And then I realized afterwards I should have, but it took 2 years of like horrible stuff happening for me to really get it. And then I was so prepared to meet my twin flame, because I was like, my intuition is everything. It can be life and death. It's like everything. I fully was like, I'm never doubting my intuition again. And that's how you need to be when you meet your twin flame, because that can also make you feel like you're crazy. But if you've learned to trust yourself enough by then, you'll realize that you're not, right? Okay, so twin flame is the mirror soul. So soulmate is like, you're probably the same kind of vibration. So you feel at home with each other. You're happy chilling in your pajamas, like emotionally and metaphorically speaking. You're like, it's easy. Twin flame is like a mirror held up to you. And my twin flame even said to me, you're like a mirror. He even said that. He's like, you always tell me what I don't want to hear, what I don't want to think, the bits of myself I'm trying to ignore. Like, you mirror to each other the things that you don't want to see. So it's a bit like a dark mirror, like a clawed glass. It's like reflecting your shadow almost. And when you meet them, there will be a feeling of recognition. We both said it feels like we met before. In the same way that with a soulmate, you may feel that, but it's more than that. It's more than that feeling. I guess it's hard to put like the difference. You would have to have experienced both to really know what I mean, I guess. But there's a lot of synchronicities in a way that wouldn't be with just a soulmate. But I think the thing about twin flame is you would have to have some level of clairvoyance or ability to almost communicate via non-verbal means, as in like in the astral realms. I'll give an example. I've given a lot of examples about my twin flame journey in a whole playlist of stuff. I'm not going to go over all of that stuff again, especially because it's personal and I'm trying to have a little bit better boundaries with the personal life and stuff, especially as things are manifesting. But what I will say is I'll just give an example that's recent, that is not one I've talked about before, without giving any details. So fairly recently, I had tried to completely detach from the connection, which is impossible. And I started having loads and loads of dreams about them. And then I started having crazy things happen in my house, like lights flickering at a certain time, or going to sleep and being woken up by my smoke alarm going off, but there was no fire, took out the batteries. Another one starts going off because I live in a big house. They were all going off at 4 a.m. And I'd just been dreaming about him. So I'm like, oh shit, something's wrong with him. Go back to sleep. Next night, 4 a.m, a woman screaming outside my house for help. I'm like, there's something wrong with him. So I message him, are you okay? It delivers straight away. Because usually, because he's in a connection with someone, I'll be blocked because of that. But sometimes he feels when I'm thinking of him or vice versa, and I'll reach out and it will deliver. And there was something seriously wrong with him happening at that time. So I knew. So that's what I'm talking about. Yes, you could say, but you're psychic. But pretty much everyone who has a twin flame is also probably working as a psychic. So like it opens you up to those things. So even if you're not necessarily working as a psychic, you would have that sort of thing with them. I mean, and it will be that extreme. And it will be synchronicities that aren't just like 11:11 on the clock when you're thinking of them. Because that can just be like apophenia, which is just your brain noticing. It can be confirmational bias. It can be just obsession. I'm talking about the types of synchronicities that I speak about in some of my other videos. So watch them. Like really crazy stuff. Premonitions that take 2 years to come into being. Really, really, really crazy stuff. Stuff that you can't sort of doubt it. Like it's undeniable. Usually one of you will be more spiritually open, but not necessarily. Both of you may be very spiritual, but one of you may be less embracing of it. People say there's typically a runner-chaser dynamic, which has been true in my experience, but that could also apply to a lot of very unhealthy relationships. So that is definitely not the main thing. The main thing is telepathy, clairvoyance, a spiritual connection, stuff like, you know, a certain place being very important to both of you from your past that is like a random place miles away from where you live. I've had that. Like we both had a connection to this weird island in Cornwall. Just things like that. I mean, I'll give it one more just so that you don't have to watch all those videos. But for example, I went to this place in Cornwall when I was heartbroken about someone, the false twin flame. I got on a boat, completely heartbroken. I was in Cornwall doing a talk about my work at an institution. Got on a boat, didn't know where it was going. It was a random fishing boat, and I ended up in this island. And when I got there, it was like the feeling of unconditional love I can't even explain to you guys, which was very similar to a near-death experience I had as a child where I heard angels singing. Like the highest type of love I've ever experienced I got on this island. And I went around taking photos. It really became an important place to me, although I didn't know what it was called, and I was there for one day. Years later, I'm talking to my twin flame, and he's talking about a place he goes on holiday every year in Cornwall, and I just knew it was the place. And so he told me the name, but the name meant nothing to me. But I looked in my Google Photos app where you can type the name, and I had a photo of the house he stayed in every year. That kind of thing, you know, which for him, maybe it's not that weird because he didn't have the experience of having the feeling, but because obviously I'm the more open spiritual one, it's like the universe pointing you out, like, don't miss this, don't miss this. And the feeling I had of that place is the feeling I got when I met him, which is something I can't describe, but his energy felt like what it felt like in that place. And there's a lot of other things like that with us, but that's just one. Also, the fact is you won't question whether this person is or isn't your twin flame. Every reading I've ever got about him, they've said he was, but I wouldn't have listened just to that. That was just confirming what I already knew. And I can do readings where I tell people what I think type of connection they're in, and I can ask my cards and I can say, if this is a twin flame connection, I want the Four of Wands to come out, and it will come out immediately if it is, or if it's something approaching a deep spiritual connection. And if that card doesn't come out, I'm pretty confident to say to people it's not, but people should also listen to their own intuition. But I develop a language with my cards where if you've had a proper reading from me, you'll know the cards speak to me. They really do. But anyway, I met him 4 years ago, and I've never doubted who he was or what it was. It took him a long time to start seeing the things I saw. I'm pretty sure now he gets what our connection is, even if he wouldn't. I mean, he's told me in the past he knew we were twin flames or soulmates, but I think more so now he would know that. But still, it takes a really long time, and there's no guarantee that you'll be with them. But it doesn't mean that you won't always kind of want to be in union with them. But in union with them doesn't necessarily mean a relationship. In union with them could just mean you guys are in a good place and can kind of communicate, or that the energies are balanced between you. But this person is never someone you're going to be like disinterested in or not want to know. Unless you're in the runner role. But you'll always flip. If one of you stops chasing, the other one will run. As soon as I detach, the universe does something crazy to make me not detach. Do you know what I mean? I've tried a lot of times to detach. And it's not an obsessional thing either. Like, definitely in the beginning it was, or it could have moments of being it, but there's an unconditional love element to it where it's not like, oh, I just don't want this person. It's not like that. That's kind of an immature, it's like, I love this person regardless, but if they're happier without me, fine, but I know still what it is. And I know in the 5D we are in union. And everyone should watch the Samadhi documentary that thinks that they're in this to understand what union means, because people think union means like we're going to get married, which it could do if that is something that you're meant to do in this lifetime, but it may not be. It may be that you've just met, but you're meant to do something together to do with your career or spirituality. In my opinion, if you've met them, there is something you're meant to do in this lifetime. Whether or not you get there is a different thing, but you're more likely to get there once you come into union within yourself. In my case, I really strongly believe that I am meant to do something and have this person in my life. So, yeah. That is twin flames. Okay, the other one that's important to talk about is a catalyst connection. Now, this is, in my opinion, the biggest thing that people confuse for twin flames, and it's hardly spoken about. A catalyst connection is someone that you're meant to meet who changes the course of your life when you're off course. A bit like a soulmate can, but it's more extreme. So a catalyst connection can be like you want to wake up spiritually, so this person's sent to kind of wake you up. So it can have a similar thing of a twin flame in that you become spiritually more awake once you meet them, or you could have been doing a crappy job that was not what you were meant to be doing and you hated it, but meeting this person made you for some reason realize you wanted to do this other thing. So that is a catalyst connection, and they're meant to be short term. This person is not meant to stick in your life. It's not like a soulmate where they're meant to maybe be around for a season or a lifetime. This is a quick thing, just there. And maybe my false twin flame, the very karmic one, should have been a catalyst, in that I was meant to learn to trust my intuition straight away, didn't assimilate that lesson, so got stuck in a cycle repeating that thing of him doing stuff, gaslighting me, where I should have trusted my intuition and instead gave all of my power away and thought I was crazy when I was completely sane and right the whole time. He convinced me I was mad to think he was cheating, or he'd slept with my friend, but he had, stuff like that is very karmic. But it's also like, if I'd learned my lesson the first time of trusting my intuition, we wouldn't have had to spiral in that cycle where it would get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse until you finally are like, fuck, I'm going to learn my lesson. The lesson's done. That's why the Akashic Reset's good if you start getting into these cycles, because it's like cuts it out. But yeah, he could have been a catalyst for me to trust my intuition, which is the lesson I learned from him to prepare me to then go on to be a reader professionally and meet my twin flame. So that's an example of a catalyst as well. And how do you see how multiple people can be multiple connections? Because they all kind of overlap. I mean, twin flame is a bit different because it's like your soul in two people. But as I've said, you can have soul fragments with your soul family, with your soulmates as well, and your soul can splinter off whenever you have trauma and get stuck in bits of situations in the past. I don't believe time is linear, so maybe in a multiple reality. So that's why soul retrieval meditation is very important, and I do that in my cord cutting meditation. I may make an actual soul retrieval meditation myself too, but I don't have time at the moment, and my cord cutting one kind of has it and it's good. So that's why it's very important that you collect your scattered soul. Now, you can't do soul retrieval in terms of your twin flame. You can about little bits that are fragmented off, but you can't, you know, call half of your soul back to yourself. It's meant to be like that. It's meant to be like that so that it can have more experience. The reason that the soul splits off in terms of we are all one consciousness, the reason we split off is so that we can have all these different experiences. So the twin flame one, it's like one soul wants to experience things two different, you know, in two different situations or whatever, and you reincarnate through multiple lifetimes until you come back into union where you're both done learning your different things. And that's why it's important not to have bad energy towards the third party, if there is one, or multiple third parties or whatever. Because if both of you are with different people, whether it's a soulmate or a karmic or whatever the other person is, it will be because you're meant to learn something from them. So you kind of should think that that person is part of whatever you guys are meant to be experiencing in life anyway, and not see them as the enemy. Also good if you're trying to manifest that you guys come into union, that you don't give so much energy and power to a third party by like not liking them, you know. You kind of just want to picture what you want and trust that it's going to happen. The other thing with twin flame is I feel like you don't have so much worry about like, is this going to happen? It's more like, you know, it's going to happen, and it's a bit frustrating that you have to wait for when it will happen. So I think you can kind of identify where you're at by how you're thinking about it. If you're thinking you know it's going to happen, it's just frustrating that it's taking so long, or you know that this connection is real, but it's frustrating that the other person is like so annoying about it, even though you know that they do feel it as well. It's not that they're totally oblivious. You know they feel it, but it's frustrating that they don't act on it. That's the difference between maybe a karmic thing where you're like really like obsessional about when is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? That shows that you don't really truly believe that you have a connection, because if you did, you would be more chill about it. And it's not to say that there aren't phases where you are quite obsessional or whatever, but I think you can kind of honestly look within and work out which connection you're in with enough time of and reflection on it. If you haven't had lots of crazy synchronicities that are unexplainable, if you haven't had clairvoyance about the person, if you can't tell how the person is without seeing them for a year, you're probably not in a twin flame connection. If you haven't spoken to the person for a year, but you can tell that someone has died or something in their life because of something that happens through signs or dreams or things happening, you're probably in a twin flame thing. You know what I mean? It's like, that's how you know. You know because you know what's going on with them, even without knowing. And then are there any other ones I should talk about? Maybe guides and mentors. So we obviously have guides and mentors in terms of in the 5D. So our spirit team, our team of light, our guides, our ancestors, they're all working in the 5D to help keep us on track. So catalyst connections are to get us on track. Guides and ancestors are to get us on track. Soulmates are to kind of have fun with. Maybe they'll get us on track too, but they're just to have fun with in life. Maybe even work together on something, but not like the twin flame thing. But then there are guides and mentors in the 3D who either before you incarnated you agreed to meet, or your guides in the 5D are setting it up because they're like, hey, this person actually needs a real person to guide them. I'll give 2 examples of this. I don't think I have past life connection with my therapist, but I'm sure that we were meant to meet at the point we met, set up by my guides and angels, because I was having a complete meltdown about my twin flame this time last year, and I was like, what do I do, angels? And this idea popped into my head, which is how it happens. Intuition will pop into your head, you'll not know where it's from. It's different from instinct or ego or fear, which is there to protect you and feels anxious. It just pops into your head. How weird that the light suddenly went weird when I did that. There's no reason that it's doing that. I don't have technology that does anything like that, guys. How fucking weird. Did you see that? Anyway, it will just pop in like that, like a light bulb, and you'll be like, okay. And so I was like, what should I do about this connection? I don't know what to do. And it was like, get a therapist. So I was like, okay. And so then I thought maybe my angels or guides were telling me like, get a therapist to help you get over this, right? I was like, fuck it, I will. My dad's a forensic psychiatrist and a Jungian analyst. So I know that I'm not crazy, and I've never really had therapy before, because I had it once when I had the false twin flame, and the therapist was like, you don't need therapy, you just need to break up with this guy. Anyway, she was like, you could be a therapist, which I think I would be a good therapist. And I kind of do that with my one-to-one mentoring a little bit, but I'm not medically trained. Anyway, so I randomly got a website up of therapists in my area, not a spiritual thing at all, and picked a name at random and wrote them an email in the middle of the night. Set up my first meeting, no hint of them being spiritual. They're an NHS therapist, but they also do private. And I went to my first thing, and then in it I was like, are you spiritual? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, I think you're with your soulmate. I think you're into manifestation, but you're not into manifestation for love, because you're with a soulmate. You're into it for money, and you and your soulmate are going to do something together. I think you're going to run a retreat. Anyway, everything I said was accurate. So in the first session, he knew I wasn't crazy, which is good, because I gave him an accurate reading. But of course, the universe had set me up with someone who's totally into manifestation. And he was like, why don't you just manifest your twin flame? He didn't know the term twin flame, but he was like, why don't you just manifest them? So I thought I was being sent there by my angels to be like, you're crazy, let's stop you thinking about this person. But in fact, I picked randomly the one therapist that's secretly into manifestation and doesn't usually tell people at all, but because I brought it up. So I had therapy with him for a while until I was like, I don't need this, but he really enjoys speaking to me. I enjoy speaking to him. So we were like, let's do it once a month. And pretty much he's just like, you're really psychic every time I go now. And he's like, please tell me when you manifest something, text me. I'm like, no, that's bad boundaries. He's taught me good boundaries. But he totally believes in all of this, which is good, because I feel he was sent to me at that time because I was about to give up on everything and think it was all bullshit. And my guides and my ancestors were like, she needs someone in the 3D to tell her what we're trying to tell her in the 5D, that she can trust, because they're like a doctor. She just needs someone to keep her on course. And that's why I had him. Another example of a guide or mentor in the 3D is I was like desperate to get an accurate reading, because honestly, if you're my clients, I shouldn't say it because it's ego, it's pure ego, but I think you're lucky, because I got into doing readings because not to make money, but because I did this art project, getting readings about the twin flame, and all of them were like, you're psychic, you should be doing it. I had used to do it when I was 18, as I've already said. My father is deeply magical, spiritual alchemist. We come from a family of alchemists. We originally translated some of the alchemical texts way back in the day. He hasn't done stuff for ages because he had to go into hiding, because he was doing something that was basically very high up, and some of the people were a bit dodgy and trying to do bad things with his powers. But he taught me to astral travel when I was 15. So I've always had it. We've always had ghosts in the house, but I've never done it because it felt a bit dangerous or whatever. I just didn't. But then when I had all these readings done for my project, they were like, you should do it, you should do it, you should do it. So I was like, oh, I'm following their advice for the project. So I started doing it, and I'm really good. But there are a lot of psychics that aren't, or maybe I just experienced the ones that were into money and frauds, because it was, again, a lesson to learn to trust my intuition, which is why every reading that you get, even if you think it's not accurate, there will be the reason that you're getting it. If you get an inaccurate reading, it's to teach you a lesson. Like, nothing is by chance. So you won't come across bad readers unless you're meant to teach you something, either way. So it's all a cosmic setup. You either believe everything is magical or nothing is. So you can't believe in manifestation and your angels and guides and things happening for a reason and believe some things don't. That's the thing. You have to go all in with this stuff, guys. And that's especially true for manifestation, because, as I said, some things are set out, but we have a lot of power to create what we want. But we have to really, truly, actually be accountable for everything that happens to realize that we created it, but we can create something better. Once you actually get past that and your ego doesn't like that, then you start manifesting properly. Trust me, I'm so good at manifesting now because I kind of I don't allow when something happens that is contrary to what I want, I don't let myself become victim mode about it. Of course, you have to feel what you're feeling, but you're like, okay, what was I thinking before this created, or why? And there are some things that are set in stone, but the majority of things, it's really up to you what happens. And I try and ram this home in my readings because I know how addicted people get to readings where they're giving their power away, someone telling them their future. And the person may or may not be good, or that you may be having to learn a lesson through getting someone telling you something that's not even accurate. So it's much better to empower yourself. I much prefer doing manifestation with clients than readings. Obviously, I do readings because they can be very helpful because it will show you what you're going to manifest based on your current belief system. So that's helpful and useful. And some things are set in stone. I mean, I love readings, but it's great when people can empower themselves. How did I get on this tangent? Oh yeah, so I was desperate for an accurate reading. And I was going to Whitstable with my friend to do some sea rituals. And I was like, we should go to Herne Bay. I think there's like a good psychic there. There are a few psychics there. And I don't know why I said that. And then the one we were planning to see was closed, but we ended up by accident, like at this place where there was a crystal place. And inside, really accurate psychic. And I think it might have been that the psychic was so accurate just because I'd put the intention like, please can I get an accurate reading, and either I was guided there or the information that came through to them. That's why a lot of people who just get readings for fun or they're bored, you might not get an accurate reading that way because your team are going to be like, oh, you know what I mean, and they're not going to cooperate so much with the reader. How I get readings for people is my team of light connect to your team of light and they give the information. If your team of light are like a bit pissed off because you've had 100 readings about the same person that's no good, or they just think that you're doing it in a way that's obsessional, they may be like, no. Or they may give information that's deliberately like to put you on a different path. Do you know what I mean? But because I was like, I need an accurate reading, please, 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 please. I was so open to it. I was like, whatever they say, I'm going to take it. Then the information she gave me, boom, accurate. And she was like me, like she didn't need the cards. She gave psychic reading first. Then I picked the cards. I know what they mean. They were very clearly what she'd already said. She knew I was psychic, you know, certain things like that. And on the way, my friend's watch broke at a time she was meant to be somewhere, and it was her grandmother's watch, and I'd done a reading before where I'd channeled her grandmother, and then the woman was like, do you have a watch or a set of keys to tune into your energies, when she was doing our reading. So the whole thing felt synchronistic, so you can feel the setup happening. Anyway, that woman I met was maybe a guide because she was talking to me about having a shop and doing readings in her shop, and I was like, that's something I've been thinking about, could be a nice thing to do. Like, how can I do this thing I'm doing with readings but make it more enriching for me? Then we went back to try and see her another time, and I got this impression that we should just stop at this and she was closed because I knew we'd already got the message we were meant to get from her, but she was closed that day. And instead we drove on a random road, and I was like, we've got to stop, there's someone here we're meant to speak to. And there was a stall which had some spiritual stuff, but it wasn't that place. And then we went a few stalls down and there was another one, and I just said to the guy, are you psychic? And he's like, I'm one of the top mediums. And he is. I researched him. And we had a conversation where I was like, do you ever help the police looking for missing people? Because I'd like to do that. And that's what he does. And we just had a little chit chat. He was talking to me about aspects of being a psychic that he really didn't like, in terms of how you get kind of used, or how a lot of people are in it for money. And I got a lot of information and insight from this little meeting with him. I got his card, maybe I'll get a reading from him, but I think I was just meant to meet him and have that little conversation because I would like to help the police at some point finding stuff. But that was, again, a little guide or mentor in the 3D that my team of light probably set me up to meet. Like, oh, I should stop here. Do you see what I mean? So your team of light in the 5D can work with people in the 3D in the same way that once when I was having a psychic attack, I said to my guardian angels, please, angels and guardian angel, can you protect me and give me a sign I'm protected, transmute this negative energy. And then the next day when I went out in the street, the first person I spoke to was a builder, and he was like, mind out, darling, and they were moving a ladder, and I was like, oh, thank you. And then he said, no worries, I'm your guardian angel, sent to tell you everything's fine and you're safe. Now, I don't think he was my guardian angel, but I think my guardian angel probably like gave him an idea to say something like that to me. Do you see how it all works? I hope you're getting how these things work. We are all connected. Anyone significant in your life, you will have some kind of soul connection to. It will be to learn something or to have a good time with them. If it's difficult, you're meant to learn something, please learn the lesson quickly so you don't have to repeat the cycle. If you're having a good time with them, it will be to have a good time with them. It may not last forever though, in the same way that one of my soulmates was there just for this season when we both needed cheering up. And when he tried to prolong it, it fell apart because it was meant to just be then. Maybe we'll reconnect later in life, but we were meant to know each other the way we did at that time and that time only. So the reason that people have relationships, in my opinion, that are unsatisfactory is they're either in a catalyst or karmic connection where they were meant to have learned a lesson and they didn't, so they keep repeating cycles, and it will become worse and worse until they learn the lesson and stop the cycle. Or they have got a soulmate connection, but they weren't meant to know each other for as long as they would have liked to in terms of their ego, because their soul has had that time with them that was meant to happen, and they're meant to just release each other and move on. And then there are people who have the twin flame connection, and one of you has more vision into the future and can see that you're meant to be together, but the other one isn't ready. So that can cause difficulty because one of you wants it and the other one doesn't recognize it yet. And that's about you really just coming to union with yourself and making peace with yourself and feeling whole in yourself. And eventually it will happen. And then there's, people who guide us and put us on our path. But all of it is, we're here to learn lessons. It's an earth school. When we get off track, we'll be put back on track, either in terms of our guides in the 5D or through people and interactions we have in the 3D. And that can be through tarot readings you have, whether they're accurate or not. Or it can be through literally speaking to a guy in a market stall, or overhearing a conversation on a bus. So just keep your eyes and heart open. You can ask for signs, you'll get them. If you're in a relationship that's difficult, it may be that you need to release it because it's run its course, or you need to learn the lesson and release it. Or if you learn the lesson, maybe the energy can get better because you don't need to keep repeating it. And with the twin flame thing, or with any of these things, I really wouldn't recommend labeling them. There's a lot of disempowering information on the internet about twin flames. Watching millions of pick a card twin flame readings is also super disempowering. And if you think about the energy that you're keying into when you watch those, it's not good. So if you want to manifest love, you need to live in the end. You need to act as if you're loved already. You need to love yourself. You need to focus on other aspects of your life, because if you were already in a loving relationship, you wouldn't be obsessed with like watching pick a card readings or making your whole life about it. You'd be doing other things, and then just visualize what you want as an end scene, but past. So if you were wanting to marry someone, you visualize your 1 year anniversary, a 3-second thing you can loop. Visualize it as you're falling asleep. Scripting is also massive. I think scripting is good, but I always think you should manifest more than one thing at a go, because then once other things manifest, you start to build your faith. I have come really far with manifestation. I've always been good at it, but now I feel I fully get it. I will always be learning, but if you need help with manifestation, come to me. Either get a one-on-one hour-long Skype where I can do reading stuff and manifestation advice, or get a manifestation package. If you've already had a manifestation package but you need more coaching and guidance, get a one-to-one with me, Skype, because it's a lifelong thing. It's not like you just do something for a month. It's that you're changing your whole way of thinking in terms of manifestation. So it can be useful to check back in and get guidance. But yeah, I hope I covered most of the soul connections that you might come across. And if you're wondering what type of connection it is, it's probably not a twin flame connection, because you'll just know. And then when you read about what it is, or you hear about it, you'll just feel sick because you're like, oh my God, that's what it is. You don't read it and think, oh, maybe that's what it is. You know what I mean? So that this is, again, my experience. In your reality, you make the rules. So I know it's a paradox, but there is polarity in the universe and there are multiple realities. So everything is true and not true at the same time. I know it's a lot to get your head around, but hopefully that was helpful, and I'll leave it there before it gets even more confusing. Let's just get like a couple of cards for people who made it all the way to the end. As I said, I'll be doing another video next weekend, so I'll put a poll up. Please vote for what you would like. And if you vote in terms of readings, your energy will be much more in the reading. I'm reading for a lot more people now, so you're having to use your discernment more. And I do recommend personal readings if you need a personal reading rather than these ones. Okay, what do we need to know, please? Seven of Swords. So for some people, this is about not deceiving yourself. Really not deceiving yourself and seeing things clearly. A lot of you could be identifying as divine feminine, and you are, whether or not you're in a connection, whatever you call the connection. But I just think there needs to be a little bit of awareness about that. I knew the twin flame card would come out. Okay, so a lot of the people that are wondering if they're twin flames, they are. Divine Feminine, Four of Wands. I know you can't see, but these cards are coming out. I absolutely knew the Four of Wands would come out, which is why I did it. But there is also some self-deception, even for the ones that are twin flame connections. There's still self-deception. And someone else may be deceiving themselves as well, wearing a mask. Ten of Cups is there to say, hey, this can work out. I understand what Spirit's trying to say. So let's get a message for the Twin Flame Collective. Hermit. This is about going within, developing your spirituality, coming to terms with yourself, being happy in yourself, finding enlightenment from within, nourishing yourself. It could be very emotional with this full moon coming up. Oh my God. Maybe it's a big portal for the twin flame people. So if you want to do my release thing, I recommend booking. You can just get a candle thing from me for £7 and you'll get this whole other ritual. I'm just saying it, because I'm doing it anyway, so I just thought it would be fun. But it does seem like this full moon is very important to get rid of any shadow stuff. Maybe to release any self-deception or doubt. It feels like there's going to be some kind of new beginning. Okay, other advice. This full moon might be really emotional for you, though. You may be feeling very lonely. It feels like it's all about manifestation and empowering yourself. There could be some kind of celebration that comes up. For some of you, maybe this is a third party thing that's upsetting you, but there's the Empress again. You have the ability to step into your power from self-deception, and there's going to be some kind of union for some of you after some kind of ending and new beginning. But it's about, there's some self-sabotage. So for the people who are listening to what I said and being very offended by the idea that this person wasn't their twin flame, maybe that's like showing you have way too much attachment. Like, what does it matter if they are or they're not really? For me, it's only useful as a term to know that I'm not completely insane. In fact, now I don't find it useful at all. I found it useful right in the beginning. Now I don't think of my person as my twin flame, although I know they are because I'm manifesting it. I think of them as my future. Well, they're the person I'm with. It's done. Do you know what I mean? I don't put them on that pedestal in terms of when I think of them of twin flame, because for me that's rife with all of these issues, which is why when you get into it and you watch all this stuff and they talk about all these things, yes, maybe that is what your connection is, but just because all these other people never got into union and they say all this stuff, and are they experts? Do you want to take that stuff that they say as real? I only take things as real that I've experienced, and I only tell you stuff from my experience. That's why I wanted to give my examples, because I don't listen to what other people say. I only listen to myself, my spirit guides, and things I experience, and so should you. So there may be a need take off this illusion, take off the self-deception, relearn all of the things you thought you learned about it, and only go by what you really experienced yourself or your own inner guidance. And if the connection just feels fucking toxic, maybe that's all it was. And if it didn't, maybe it wasn't. Like, do you know what I mean? There's a level of self-deception to this whole thing that needs to be released. It'll be different for everyone. But at the end of it, there is a chance for union, whether that's just within the self or with the fucking divine masculine. I wish I'd set this up so you guys, I mean, how could I be looking at what I'm pulling? You know I'm not anyway. But weird that would come out. Okay, I'm going to leave that there, unless there's one more card. Just be careful of what you're watching online, not stalking them online. I got rid of my Instagram from my phone. I have to post stuff sometimes because I do a lot of things, including radio. I did a radio episode. The link is in my community tab. Listen to it. I'll be doing it every month now. Funny, weird manifestation, synchronicity thing, because my twin flame does radio, and I was whining about the fact that he had someone doing readings on it when it was something we'd talked about doing. And then my old radio boss from years ago was like, come and do tarot on the radio. He hadn't watched my videos and known that I'd been whining about it. And now I'm going to do that every month. So, what was I saying about that? Oh yeah, I deleted my Instagram, but occasionally I have to still post stuff. But I'm much stricter with my boundaries of like, don't want clients contacting me on Instagram, because I know people think it's just them, but I have hundreds of clients. And also don't look at stuff on Instagram, just post my stuff and then delete the app when I don't need it for a while. But since I've been doing that, my manifestations have been much, much better, because you're not getting sucked into the 3D. It's all old news. Anything you're watching on Instagram is old reality, especially if you're looking at your person's Instagram in some way and freaking out about stuff. That's just manifestations of the past. So you want to create the future. You don't want to look at the present. I mean, the present is the past. So yeah. Okay, that's it. I've rambled for a really long time. Do vote for the next video. Please like, comment, subscribe. When I get to 3,000 subscribers, I'll give a free reading again. Check the community tab, check the last video to see if you won the last giveaway. 2 of you have contacted me, 1 hasn't, but I'm not going to contact them because I want to make sure that they're watching the videos if they're going to get the free things. Do you know what I mean? All right, much love, light and positivity to you all. Take care.